Hello, and welcome to Sister in Elections. We are currently 5 days away from Election Day. It's the 29th of October, and this is going to be my final video, not covering specific polls, predictions, or general projections of the possible outcome of the 2020 election. Now, what this video is going to be covering is looking at the general election polls, the national polling, compared to 2020 to 2016, Trump versus Biden against Trump versus Clinton. Now, as we all know, there was quite a large fiasco about polling. Nationally, it wasn't that bad, and I'm going to cover that in a minute. However, statewide, the polling had a margin of error of about 5 points, which was historically very poor statewide. But nationally, the polling was actually only about 1 point away from the actual result. Now, if we're going to look at Trump versus Biden today, I'm going to be using RCP polling averages because they have a much easier way to compare this between 2016 and 2020, and they essentially had a very similar prediction nationwide to 538. And when we're looking at nationwide, which is what we're looking at today, it's not going to matter much about the statewide polling. And just looking at the average spread, Biden currently has a 7.5 lead if you want to round that up to 8 points nationally, and that currently equates to 51 points for Joe Biden and 43.7 points for Trump. Factor in the undecided, which is probably around 5 or 6% at the moment. You're probably going to get 2 or 3% vote for third parties nationwide. And even if Trump does win all 5 or 6% of those undecided voters, if the polls are correct, then he still cannot catch Biden for a national poll or a popular vote victory. Now, not many people really expect Donald Trump to be taking a national vote victory because he lost that by 2 points, roughly, in 2016 to Hillary Clinton. But it is still quite interesting to see that, Biden is leading by quite a substantial margin, even though he has definitely come down since the middle of October, where he had his highest point for ages. You have to go back to 2019 when he had that similar point of a 10-point lead, realistically. And this is not looking good for Trump in the final days, only 5 days left, but that's not what we're covering today. We're going to be covering differences between 2020 and 2016. Now, consistently, Biden has been leading. The outlier is 1 point for Trump, and another outlier is 11 points for Biden. So the fact that there is almost a 12-point spread between those two polls that were taken from the exact same dates, the 27th of October to the 25th, both of them, does show that it's going to be quite an interesting race. And if you want to look at the polls, we don't look at individual polls. We always take the aggregate of many polls. As you can see, this is what RCP do, and this is how we get that average poll. But I'm going to quickly look back at 2016 and see where Hillary Clinton was at this point. Now, you can already see the graph is looking very different. I'm going to cover that in a minute. But if you look 5 days before Election Day, of course, it was a week later, back in 2016, and 5 days was November the 3rd. And Hillary Clinton led by 1.3 points. 1.3 points. Joe Biden currently leads by 7.5 points. So already you can see there is quite a drastic difference between the margin between the Republican and the Democrat candidate. And it was definitely a lot tighter back in 2016, which was shown by the constant fluctuation, which I'm going to cover in a minute. But the fact that Hillary Clinton, of course, Trump, in polling wise, he lost quite a lot of his lead there in the final 5 days. So, but realistically, it was, between 1 point accurate. Hillary Clinton, the final results actually led by 2.1 points nationally, compared to the polling, which gave her a 3.2 lead, which, realistically, that is a pretty good prediction from the polls nationwide. And that was enough for her to win states like Nevada, Colorado, New Hampshire, Minnesota, which Trump did have a decent chance at winning. Of course, New Hampshire was within 2,000 votes. Trump came within there. But, overall, Hillary Clinton ran a much, much tighter race to Donald Trump. It was always within like 5, the maximum you're seeing were Hillary Clinton leading by 7 points. 7 points in the middle of October, about the same point that Joe Biden was leading 10 or 11 points nationwide. And you've seen Donald Trump closing the gap there. Of course, his in-person rallies have definitely helped him do that in the recent days. You've seen him attend 3 in Michigan, in Omaha as well. I believe that was yesterday or the day before. So whereas Joe Biden has definitely taken a much more hands-off approach to his final weeks of campaigning. But I'm just going to take a closer look at the final run-up to these elections. Now, if you want to take a quick look, just going over to start of May in 2016 to election day. This is Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. You can see the fluctuation in this is huge. Of course, there was quite a strong third-party presence back in this era, but Hillary Clinton never led more than 7 points. The highest point she had was 7.1, and that drastically changed in the final days of the election. But Donald Trump was very competitive this entire time. He had a lead there back in the middle of May. He had a lead there in July. And Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are always polling very close to each other. Now we look at the same time period between, May 1st and election, or the current day, 5 days before the election between Biden and Trump, is not even close. Biden, his narrowest lead was 5 points. It's definitely narrowed up recently, but there's never been a point in this, period about 5 or so months where Donald Trump has got even close to getting within the margin of error for Biden. So I think it's fair to assume that trend-wise, of course, 2018, the midterms, Democrats did very well. They won the generic ballot by 8 points, and they're likely to win it by 5 or 6 points again. I don't know why it's just refreshed there, but you can see this is basically where we were counting from about this point. You can see the margins are huge. The average margin is probably about 7 or 8 points in favor of the former vice president, and Donald Trump has definitely not got anywhere near. So what do we take out from this? What we take out is that Donald Trump is seriously in trouble. Seriously in trouble nationwide. If Joe Biden does win by 7.5 points, even if we say that what happened back in 2016 happens again, so Joe Biden actually wins by 6 points, that's still him winning in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Remember, Donald Trump only won those combined 3 states by 110,000 votes. 110,000 votes go back to Hillary Clinton across those 3 states, and we would have seen 4 years of Hillary Clinton be president. So the election was very, very tight in 2016, and Hillary Clinton only ended up winning a 2-point nationwide popular vote margin. Joe Biden is predicted a lot more than that, and he has consistently led against the incumbent. And this only shows that Donald Trump is in dire need of a huge rebound in the final days. Of course, the report on GDP came out 2 hours ago from when I'm filming this video. Probably when I actually release this video is going to be earlier in the day, but it's somewhat positive for the Trump campaign. Of course, the economy hasn't rebounded to the levels it was at the start of the year, but it does show that a 33% increase is definitely a good sign for the president and could help narrow that gap. But realistically, you're looking at 70 million Americans already voted, and Joe Biden has held a consistent lead. Polls in 2016 were, fairly accurate, and showed a very, very tight race in 2016. There is not that sort of fluctuation in the polls this year, and that is why Joe Biden is almost guaranteed to win the popular vote. And if he does win the popular vote by this margin, he will be almost guaranteed to win the electoral college as well. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all again soon.